From everyone saying they won the Luka trade, to being knocked out in the first round, from being considered title contenders, to making Rudy Gobert look like prime Shaq.
Deep, air ball, Gobert, the follow slam. He's in.
From everyone saying Lakers in 5, to losing in 5 to Ant-Man, what the hell happened to the Los Angeles Lakers? When Luka Doncic was traded to the Lakers, it shocked the entire NBA world. A trade that came out of nowhere, one that was executed while the world was asleep. A trade that was so ridiculous that people thought Shams was hacked. Current players, former players, athletes, your grandmother, they all went into a frenzy. Doncic was the face of the Dallas Mavericks franchise, a 25-year-old player who had been first-team All-NBA 5 times.
He has made first-team All-NBA, so one of the best 5 in the NBA.
A man who had just carried the franchise to its first NBA Finals since 2011. Yet without any rumors, without even telling Luka himself, the Mavs traded him to the Lakers. Now they did get back Anthony Davis, and it was the first time 2 reigning All-NBA players had been traded for each other mid-season. But in terms of sheer shock value and nobody knowing anything beforehand, the AD-Luka trade is definitely the #1 most shocking trade in NBA history. Why would Dallas want to get rid of a guy who had just dragged them to the finals? Well, according to sources, the Dallas front office felt that they could not win a championship with Luka. Their general manager, Nico Harrison, told ESPN that he believed getting an all-defensive center and an all-NBA player with a defensive mindset gave them a better chance of actually winning the whole thing. As we will see later in the video, maybe Nico was onto something, though it still doesn't justify the trade. Now, before the trade, JJ Redick had been doing a great job of having the Lakers really punch above their weight. There was a night and day difference between JJ's Lakers and Darvin Ham's. Under JJ, the Lakers had a new offensive approach, which was really focused on lots of movement, screening, and multiple actions to create high quality scoring chances. Under Ham, he just put his hands in his pocket and told the team to play harder. By having everyone play selfless basketball, JJ was putting less pressure on LeBron James. Now the King didn't need to create everything, and he could pick and choose the moments where he would use his energy. It was a huge change from Ham's stationary offensive sets. This way, they also kept the defenses guessing. In each possession, there was a lot of screens and cuts and fake screens. It was very easy to trick defenders. Perfect example was how often LeBron James and Austin Reeves used handoffs to start plays. By having multiple different players handle the ball, the defenders had to decide whether to switch or actually stay with their man. But while the Lakers were playing well, they didn't really feel like contenders. AD and LeBron were as dominant as ever, but it seemed like the team was missing some key ingredients. For one thing, they needed someone other than LeBron who could create. Well, enter Luka, one of the few players in the NBA who could actually carry the offensive load better than a 40-year-old LeBron James. Everyone agreed that Pelinka had essentially robbed the Mavs. Sure, they had to give up Anthony Davis, who was one of the best two-way players in the league, but AD was only going to get worse from now on as he aged, and he was a constant injury concern. He wasn't able to stay healthy consistently, and was pretty vocal about not wanting to play at the center, even though the way the Lakers won the championship in 2020 was with AD at center. On top of that, the Lakers didn't give up any of their other assets to bring in Luka. No extra picks, no Austin Reeves, not even Connect was put in the packet. Dallas had simply been robbed, because even with the defensive issues of Luka and the problems with him staying in shape, it made no sense for the Mavs to do this trade privately in the dark instead of telling the entire league and starting a bidding war. If they truly believed that Luka Doncic could not help them win a championship, then every other team in the league would have been at their doorstep giving Dallas whatever assets they have. You don't think the Spurs would have given up a ton of picks to pair Luka with Wemby? You don't think OKC could have packaged together a good young player with a ton of picks? This is the part that's the most confusing about all of it, that instead of auctioning off Luka for the best possible package, Dallas goes and just makes a deal without anyone knowing with the Lakers. Seriously, nobody knew about this trade besides Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison. Not AD, not LeBron, nobody had a clue. LeBron was reportedly having dinner with his family when he got the news. Although I do find this part a bit hard to believe, Le GM usually knows everything. So the trade happens, and at the time, Luka was out with a calf injury and hadn't actually played since Christmas Day. When he starts finally playing, he wasn't playing well, which again makes sense. Not only was he coming back from an injury, but for at least the first 3 weeks, he was still feeling the shock of being traded out of nowhere. I mean, reportedly, the guy had bought a house in Dallas, and then he just wakes up and finds out he's traded. He actually broke his phone when he found out the news. And then look at his reaction when the Lakers played Dallas months later. He couldn't hold it together, crying as he watched the montage they made for him. This guy thought he was going to be a Maverick for the rest of his life. He thought he was going to retire in Dallas like one of his idols, Dirk Nowitzki. Yet now he was shipped to LA, a city filled with shallow celebrities. In his Lakers debut against the Utah Jazz, he scored just 14 points in 24 minutes. And of course, the reactionary media was already trying to criticize him for views. You got guys like Kendrick Perkins coming out and saying that somehow Dallas won the trade.
Who won on this side? Is it the Dallas Mavericks or is it the Lakers?
It's the Dallas Mavericks.
He had played like one game, by the way. Now naturally, since he's a generational talent, it didn't take long for Doncic to show flashes of his old self. On February 25th, he dropped his first triple-double as a Laker, 19 points, 15 rebounds, and 12 assists as the Lakers beat his former team, the Mavericks.
And Doncic is going to grab his share of headlines with the triple-double in his first game against his old team. Did not disappoint.
Luka is always motivated by hate, and you could see exactly how he felt as he stared at the Mavs bench after every point. Granted, it wasn't those guys' fault he got traded. Only one man was responsible for executing that trade, and it's this freak right here, Nico Harrison. Then on March 4th, Luka went off again, putting up 30 points and 15 assists in a win against the Pelicans. That made him just the 4th player in Lakers history to record those numbers in a single game, joining legends like LeBron, Magic Johnson, and Jerry West. But the most emotional night came on April 9th. Doncic returned to Dallas, where he was welcomed with a touching video tribute and cheers from the crowd. Like I said, the poor guy looked like he was about to bawl his eyes out. While he might have been emotional before the game, during the game he didn't hold back. He scored 45 points in a 112-97 win, and in doing so he became just the 2nd player ever, after Wilt Chamberlain, of course, to score 45 points both for and against the same team in the same season. As Luka adjusted more and more to his new team and teammates, the Lakers got better. Before the trade, the Lakers were bouncing around between 4th and 6th. Sometimes they were going on a nice run of games, then they would lose a bunch of games. But now with Luka, they had risen up the standings to 3rd. The team now had 3 guys who could all handle the ball, with Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves all taking turns leading the offense. Reeves was already playing really well before Luka, but then when the chunky Slovenian arrived, he thrived off the extra space he was getting. Cause Luka has a lot of gravity, teams have to double him. They blitz him all the time in the pick and roll, so it makes it a lot easier for his teammates cause they just have so much more space and so much less attention on them. Reeves on any given night was ready to either be the first option or the third. One game he was putting up 45 points as the focal point of the team's offense, the next day he was playing unselfishly and helping out the 2 superstars.
This is what they're paid to see right there.
That sort of flexibility is so rare to find in the modern NBA because most players have too big of an ego after good scoring performances, but not Reeves. He's willing to do whatever the team needs. He's also just a super intelligent player. He never settles for bad shots, he's always in control of how he wants to score, and his playmaking has improved drastically. Knowing when to dribble and when to pass seems like a basic thing to have in an NBA player, but trust me, a lot of these guys get tunnel vision. Add in the fact that he isn't afraid of big moments and you had all the ingredients for the perfect 3rd star on a team. Unfortunately, as we will see later in the video, this version of Reeves was non-existent against the Wolves. I mean, everything I mentioned before, you would chuckle at if you saw his performance in the 1st round. Now, to be fair, he was still making good decisions. His shot wasn't falling. Now, while the Lakers were soaring through the standings, Luka's former team was going down like Jamal Murray's girlfriend. Kyrie had gotten hurt and then AD got hurt. Like I told you guys, Anthony Davis, unfortunately, struggles to stay healthy. So going into the postseason, it was another example that the Lakers had won the trade. They were going into the playoffs as the 3rd seed, while Dallas were eliminated in the play-in tournament. Now going into the playoffs, there were some visible flaws still in the Lakers roster. Even when AD was there, they still needed a big man. The goal had always been to put a big center next to AD so that he can cook teams as the 4, or at least in certain possessions, he wouldn't get banged up as much playing as the power forward instead of the center. Well, when Luka joined, that problem wasn't fixed. In fact, it got even worse. Now the Lakers were even smaller, and they had lost their best defender for a guy that, let's be honest, is a defensive liability. And that was shown in the 1st round. Luka was too easy to get by. The Wolves were literally playing whoever offense on him. No matter which player was on Luka, the Wolves would give that guy the ball. Didn't matter if it was Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniel. Anytime a player was being guarded by Luka, the Wolves knew it was time for barbecue chicken. I saw McDaniel, a guy who was supposed to be just a 3-and-D player, look like Kevin Durant every time he was 1v1 with Doncic. If you go back and watch some highlights, it's embarrassing how easy it is for players to go by him. How often someone will make a backdoor cut and Luka is sleeping. Other times he will be weeping to the referee instead of getting back in transition. Sometimes he looks good defending. He'll move his feet and have active hands. But it's honestly such a rare sight to see. And it just kept happening over and over again. We're not talking about one game here, one game there. You could make a whole compilation on Luka's defensive lowlights across the 5 games against the Wolves. Meanwhile, you look at the opposition, addition, and even if Ant has a bad offensive night, he is an excellent defender. As a result, you can never take advantage of him when you have the ball. But Luka, on the other hand, at any given moment, can give the opposition a free 2 points. That was the benefit of having Anthony Davis. AD could protect the rim, but he was also perfectly fine on the perimeter. He was exceptional. But since he was gone, the Lakers now had no size. JJ had to play with some very small lineups. At times, there were 3 guards in the lineup together. Yes, Doncic, Austin Reeves, and Gabe Vincent would be on the floor at the same time. That's 3 defensive liabilities right there. Luka at times is lazy defensively, but Austin Reeves, despite trying his best, is even worse. And in the playoffs, teams will attack your weaknesses. And the Lakers, they were frankly too easy to beat on the perimeter and also too easy to beat in the paint. Cause yes, Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, these guys are great defenders, but that's just 2 players. The lack of size is why Rudy Gobert turned into prime Shaquille O'Neal in Game 5. That croissant-loving freak had a playoff game that he will most likely never replicate again. The Lakers played a zone defense which worked. The Wolves were bricking every shot, but it also meant that Rudy was getting every single offensive rebound. Nobody could stop him. And this is a guy that actually really struggles when he has the ball in his hands. Despite being 7'2", he's not a great finisher at the rim. This is why he doesn't have big scoring nights. But against the Lakers, there was nobody to stop him. He was at least 6 inches taller than everyone else. So even though Ant was having a bad game, he was just eating everyone in the paint. The center issue was supposed to have been fixed with the Mark Williams trade in the winter, but it fell through. And JJ didn't trust Jackson Hayes. And even if he did play him, there was a trade-off. Yes, maybe with Jackson Hayes on the court, Rudy doesn't get that many points. But at the same time, on offense, the Lakers would have struggled. Because offensively, the centerless lineups of LeBron, Luka, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Hachimura was working perfectly because of the spacing they created. Since everybody could shoot, there was a lot of space. It made life a lot easier on offense. But like I said, defensively, there was 0 rim protection. They tried, but that's why there's a center position in basketball. Now, usually in the past, Luka was able to cancel out his defensive mistakes by being an absolute torch on offense, but he never really exploded consistently in games. He played good in Game 1, getting 37 points. Frankly, if LeBron had played better, they could have won. But Luka's consistency was just not there. In Game 3, he only scored 17 points. And in Game 5, while he got 28, he did it on 39% shooting from the field. Game 4 was probably the worst for him. He got a lot of points, but he also missed so many easy layups, so many easy jumpers, shots that he would make in his sleep. It was really tough to watch. Now again, reports will probably come out that he was playing with an injury. During the entire Game 5, it looked like his lower back was really bothering him. On one possession, he got fouled so hard it looked like he got folded. In Game 3, he was recovering from a stomach bug. So let me add some given context. Although like I said, even when he was fully okay, he still didn't look good. But it was just weird to see. We had seen Luka drag a far worse roster deeper into the playoffs. Although again, that Dallas team had some pretty good bigs. Derek Lively and Gafford were so important to that Dallas Mavericks run, and they helped Luka out a ton, allowing him to really shine in the pick and roll game. But the Lakers didn't have someone like that. Sure, you could run some 2-man games with LeBron James, but it wasn't the same. But just in general, Luka just didn't look the same. There were many times where he was on an island with Rudy Gobert, and frankly, the Frenchman did well. Rudy got absolutely cooked last year because Luka cooked him, but now this year he deserves a lot of credit because there was many times that he was left on an island and he defended Luka perfectly well. So what does all of this mean? Was Nico Harrison right? Frankly, it was a humbling loss. Many expected Luka and LeBron to go far in the playoffs considering how good this team looked in the regular season. Everyone thought that by having 2 incredibly intelligent players who are both phenomenal with the ball, that it would be a nightmare to play against them in a 7-game series. But the Wolves beat them in 5. So what happens now? Can Luka actually lead a team to a ring? What happens to LeBron? At times, he looked fantastic. Defensively, he looked like 2013 LeBron again, but then offensively, he was non-existent in the 4th quarter of matches. Was it father time catching up? Was it fatigue? The whole point of bringing in Luka was to take the load off of LeBron, to once again allow him to pick and choose his moments. So why was he not taking over games? Many times, Anthony Edwards was actually the best player on the court. At times, LeBron and Luka weren't even the 2nd best players on the court. I think most people knew that they weren't actual true contenders, but I think the general assumption was that these guys would maybe lose to OKC, or maybe lose in the final to the Boston Celtics or Cleveland. But to lose in the first round to a 6th seed Wolves, it's not a great look. Yes, there were flaws in the roster. Many issues that were there before the trade were still there. And while some things were fixed, new issues also arose. But it still feels like a disappointment. So what do the Lakers do now? Well, I feel like they will just run it back, but hope to find an actual center before the next season. You could also make the argument that Luka now, with a preseason camp and more time to gel with his teammates, will make the Lakers better. After all, the man joined mid-season. Halfway through the year, he was just shipped off, and we have seen what he can do in the postseason. LeBron no doubt will return for at least another season. There is no way he retires without some sort of a farewell tour. And in terms of what Nico Harrison said, the Lakers, even with an early exit, still won this trade because they got the perfect guy to prepare for LeBron leaving eventually. All you have to do now is build around Luka, a guy who has shown time and time again he does get better in the postseason, a guy who has a game that will age gracefully. He's not relying on athleticism like other players. He can be in his 30s and still dominate. And on top of that, the Lakers are getting a Luka with a chip on his shoulder. The first chip came from Dallas getting rid of him, and now this first round exit will motivate him even more. At least you hope. Some can argue that this is a reoccurring story. Luka loses, we assume he's gonna get revenge, and he comes back into the new season not looking any more in shape. But when you have a player this talented, you always have to hope. JJ Redick is also going to be a huge factor for this team. He showed in his first year that he's very qualified to be an NBA coach. His understanding of the X's and O's is very impressive, which really shouldn't have come as a surprise considering he spent 15 years in the league, but for some reason in many people's eyes, he was just a podcaster. Remember what the convos were around him. People thought he only got the job because he did a podcast with LeBron James. JJ will figure out what went wrong and fix it for the new season. People might give him blame, but frankly the roster wasn't perfect, and he can't do anything when LeBron James and Luka Doncic are missing layups or turning over the ball in the most clutch situation. That stuff's not in JJ's hands. Even though this is a humbling loss, it's still an exciting time to be a Lakers fan. To see just how good Doncic can be, you gotta check out this video right here.